As our world changes, we'll keep you up to date. News Talk KVNU, 102 FM, 610 AM. Also on the new KVNU mobile app.
KVNU News Time is 5:03. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by Logan Extermination. The criminal case against one of the former owners of Nyman Funeral Home accused of stealing thousands of dollars from customers continues to be postponed more than 3 years after charges were originally filed. Kent L. Nyman and Lonnie K. Nyman reportedly sold prepaid funeral trust accounts and then used the money for their own purchases. Kent Nyman participated in a pretrial conference Monday afternoon in Logan's 1st District Court. He was previously charged with a pattern of unlawful activity, unlawful dealing with property by a fiduciary, and communications fraud, all second-degree felonies. According to the indictments, the two men sold contracts for pre-need funeral plans to at least 105 victims. Instead of placing the funds in trust accounts as required by law, the money was deposited into two bank accounts. The funds were then used for personal expenses at fast food restaurants, sporting goods stores, as well as payments toward personal credit card balances. Kent Nyman has claimed that he is innocent. The 76-year-old Providence man has told investigators that his responsibility was primarily the sale and contracting for pre-need funeral plans, and he didn't handle the financing. Lonnie Nyman would deposit the payments. KVNU News Time is 5:04. KVNU weather for tonight, mostly clear skies is the forecast. Overnight low in the lower 40s, and then a nice day tomorrow. Looking at around 72, plenty of sunshine in the forecast tomorrow. It's been a few degrees cooler this afternoon. We've stayed in the 60s. 68 has been our high. That's where we are right now at KVNU. KVNU weather brought to you by Dr. Keith Nelson, board-certified orthopedic surgeon experienced in successful surgeries for sports medicine and arthritis. For arthritis, Dr. Nelson offers the Omnibotic knee replacement system that has a 97% patient satisfaction rate. Visit drkeithnelsonortho.com.
Even though the weather's grown colder, you still have time to have your fruit trees pruned. Logan Extermination says your trees need to be trimmed back in order to achieve success next year. And this is the first step to a bountiful harvest. However, you could do more bad than good if you don't know what you're doing. Save the headache and call Logan Extermination today and get a jump on tree pruning. Prices will vary depending on your needs. Logan Extermination, 752-8450.
KVNU News Time is 5:06. One of the candidates running for Logan Municipal Council was once on the council. Joe Needham was a guest on KVNU's For the People program on Monday and feels it's his time to return.
I was on the city council actually over 15 years ago that I served, and I got elected as a very young man, and had a great time. It was a very, amazing experience in my life. Actually shaped my life quite a bit.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. But after 15 years, I've sat back on the sidelines watching and saying, "Hey, how about this? How about that?" Just like any citizen would do. But I threw my name back in the hat to say, you know what? Let's get there and make a difference.
You said growth in the city is happening and more is coming, but Logan needs to grow responsibly. He said more dense inner city growth is important, and the mall project is a great example of that.
But at the same time, we need not to forget about our residential neighborhoods and the quality that they have. And in fact, the biggest topic right now that I never thought would be coming up, particularly while I'm running for city council, and that is they want to change, the city's considering changing a residential home rental. Currently, you can occupy 3 unrelated people, and they want to change that to 4. So here we are building, over 1,200 apartments going into Logan right now, and then we're asking our residential neighborhoods to expand their apartment base too. I do think that that's wrong, and that we need to protect our neighborhoods.
Needham, along with all the other council candidates, will be participating in a Meet the Candidates event this evening at 6 at the Logan Municipal Council Chambers. That will be broadcast live on KVNU next hour, also KVNUtalk.com. Logan City School District announced their Teacher of the Year for 2023-24 as Wilson Elementary School third grade teacher Caitlin Davis. Superintendent Frank Schofield said Caitlin is a great example of what is done by teachers across the district and across the country who daily provide those quality experiences for kids. Davis moved to Cache Valley from Preston, Idaho 11 years ago to attend Utah State University and stayed in the valley ever since. Davis said she has always known she wanted to be a teacher, but it was having the opportunity in high school to help as an aide in an elementary school that helped solidify her love of teaching. Davis explained how one of her favorite parts of teaching is seeing the impact she has made on her students. Wilson School Principal Morgan Cole said Davis received an overwhelming amount of support from not only teachers and staff, but also from former students and parents. Cole said one of the things that stuck out to her from the nominations for Davis was not only the impact she has had on her students, but also the atmosphere she creates for her students. Schofield said he was impressed by Davis's ability to harness students' energy towards learning. Cole said Davis was genuine and warm, not only towards students and parents, but her fellow teachers and staff as well. Davis said she just continues to enjoy teaching and sees students for the potential they have. KVNU News Time is 5:09. You can always get more news at CacheValleyDaily.com.
News and current events. News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
With the arrival of fall, potential heavy rainstorms, fallen leaves, and debris, the Cache Stormwater Coalition would like to remind you of a few things to be mindful of. Clean out all the leaves and debris from your rain gutters. Use a broom or rake to remove leaves and debris from the top of storm drains, as clogged storm drains can lead to flooding. Don't keep piles of yard waste in your yard, on the sidewalk, or street. Use a green waste recycle bin, and check with your local city office on where to place collected leaves for pickup. And when it snows, remember to keep the snow away from curb and gutter and storm drains. We can all make a difference if we do our part. Brought to you by the Cache Stormwater Coalition.
Are you in need of excellent surgical care? Budge Clinic General Surgery offers the future of surgery with state-of-the-art robotic-assisted procedures. From cancer treatments to surgical needs, they've got you covered. Call Budge Clinic General Surgery today, 435-716-1950, to schedule a consultation and experience the best possible outcome. Trust Drs. Anderson, Marshall, McKenna, and Peterson, the experts at Budge Clinic General Surgery, helping people live the healthiest lives possible.
The future's overdue. Yeah, I know that. Tell me engine on, our song blaring out of dead radio.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Hour 2 of today's show. This hour is pre-recorded to give me time to make my way down and get set up at Logan City Hall for Logan residents. An in-person Meet the Candidate events taking place tonight, starting right at 6 o'clock as our show ends here. We'll go live here on KVNU to an hour of debate between 6 candidates vying for 3 spots on the Logan City Council. A handful of incumbents and challengers will be on hand. Audience questions will be submitted live during the event. We've also gotten a lot of questions from our listeners ahead of tonight's event that I've grouped together into like categories, and it should be a very interesting hour of radio. So be sure to stay tuned as For the People wraps up tonight for the Logan City Meet the Candidates event, broadcasting live here on KVNU 6 to 7 p.m., followed immediately by the Coaches Show, the KVNU Coaches Show with Al Lewis, starting off at 7 to 8 p.m. So a full lineup tonight. I hope you didn't have other plans. You're going to be glued to your radio. Again, the Meet the Candidates Tonight event at Logan City Hall is in person as well. So if you'd like to come down to City Hall and see us do the broadcast live with the candidates after our live broadcast ends at 7, we're going to enter into a more informal discussion with the candidates there for the audience and ask them a simple question and hopefully get a back and forth going between the candidates, asking them what they think Logan will look like 10 years from now. But we have some great questions for the hour that will be broadcast, again, 6 to 7 p.m. tonight here on KVNU. Coming up, we'll revisit some highlights from recent interviews, including some time with Governor Gary Herbert, the Conservative Climate Caucus that was launched by Utah Representative John Curtis, represents Utah's 3rd Congressional District. He launched this Climate Caucus a couple of years ago, and they had their big annual summit recently. We've got some highlights of that coming up for you on the show, too, addressing climate change and the future of the planet from a conservative perspective. Things to talk about here on the show today. Quickly, just a heads up for everyone. There's been a lot of people asking what they can do to help those in Israel and Palestine with the, heartbreaking news every day coming out of the area. And people concerned that some of the things they're seeing on social media might not be legit. Well, a couple of things. First off, check out GuideStar. GuideStar.com is the website. You can actually enter the name of any nonprofit and see their track record, see how they do as far as where the money goes, how much of it goes to administrative costs and running the nonprofit as opposed to what they're all about, the aid they are supplying. So GuideStar is your best friend, but I've posted a link on our Facebook page. The Utah Department of Commerce has also gotten a lot of questions about this, and so they've done a quick review of some long-standing nonprofits here in Utah and other states that are sending aid to both those in Israel and those in Palestine as this war continues. It's, again, heartbreaking news every day, it seems, out of the area for the last 10 days, and no end in sight for the time being. And that's on top of, the often heartbreaking news still coming out of Ukraine with the Russian invasion there. So, if you're looking to give, there's plenty of options. And I've posted a link to the Utah Department of Commerce report that they published today on nonprofits that you can know if you're making a donation or donating your time, it's going to the cause that it's meant to go to and not to line the pockets of some administrator at the nonprofit. So that link is on our Facebook page. You can also check out GuideStar itself online, a company that reviews the financials of nonprofits, both linked on our Facebook page. And stay tuned. More For the People to come right after this.
At Stotz Equipment, your Cache Valley John Deere dealer, they have the equipment you need to get the job done. Handle heavier duty chores around the farm, property, or job site with John Deere compact utility tractors and compact construction equipment. They have an option for all your jobs with premium features and the right size tractor for your operation. Find out which tractor is right for you. Stotz Equipment is located 451 West 8th North in Preston, Idaho. Visit the store or check them out online at StotzEquipment.com.
Bank of Utah's 11th annual Warm Bodies Warm Souls Clothing Drive is going through November 10th. They're collecting warm clothing items for 12 different charitable institutions. Drop off your clothing donations to any participating Red Hanger, Arctic Circle, or Bank of Utah location. You'll receive a free double cheeseburger coupon from Arctic Circle or a free shirt cleaning voucher from Red Hanger. Donate gently used coats, hats, scarves, gloves, blankets, or new underwear. Bank of Utah. Together, we are Utah. Find out more at bankofutah.com. Member FDIC, MMLS number 422914.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Leaders here in Utah recently attended what is called the Conservative Climate Summit. This is put together by, several people involved with this, but Representative John Curtis in Utah is one of the founders of the Conservative
Climate Caucus, which is a legislative caucus in the United States Congress. But this summit is something that kind of spun from that. Utah organizations get behind this and host what they call a leadership conference or a summit in order to take the work of this caucus, take the work of others out there. We've spoken before with a conservative group coming out of northern Utah, in fact, that is pushing certain climate change addressing proposals, from tax incentives to reduce your emissions as a company or a producer to penalties, actually, that are similar to a carbon tax but more nuanced. There are a lot of different ways you can get in touch with this kind of thing. The conservative approach. I've linked to some of the caucus's documentation, but also links to video of the summit itself that happened in Salt Lake on our Facebook page if you want to check it out. Most of it is long form, a couple hours long in total, but it was done through breakout sessions and panels, and a lot of that video is easy to find if you want to just search for it as well. But a few links on our Facebook page. It's been interesting to watch because there's been this evolution. Congressman Rob Bishop, when he was in office, he was the first Republican in Utah to very bluntly say, he was asked a question, which was basically, do you believe in anthropomorphic climate change? Which is, do you believe humans are contributing and exacerbating the changing of our climate through greenhouse gas emissions that are warming the planet and the oceans? That was the specific question. And Congressman Bishop said, yes, absolutely. In fact, the science is pretty clear. And it was national news for weeks. Now, okay, I'm exaggerating, but it was at least a day. It was national news that a Republican had said this. And then Republicans started coming out of the woodwork and saying, well, I mean, yeah, it had become such a political football that Republicans were afraid to say this because people, in their base would pile on, because it was such a political football. But times have changed. And one of the things that has changed this for conservatives and as my friend Paul Miro, a devout, lifelong conservative, would argue, conservatives have always believed in climate change, and they've always believed that humans are contributing to it with some of our output and pollution. What the conservatives have disagreed with, Paul would say, is the proposed solutions and how drastically we need to act. That's where the difference came in. So conservatives were always there, Paul would argue. The Republican Party and elected officials within the party, a different story. It became such a political football, they couldn't talk about it. And Representative John Curtis said, this is an actual quote, he said, you know what, this is ridiculous. We all see the science. We all have the same access as every elected official up here to the information that comes our way through Congress's own research arms and reports from the military. That's what really kind of hammered this home. Is you had the Pentagon reports from the military saying, look, climate change is going to destabilize certain regions of the world as deserts expand, as wet areas move around, as weather gets more erratic, which is all what scientists have predicted climate change will bring, and we're seeing that now. And so they said this is a national security issue, and that got Republicans' attention. And so finally they started talking about it. And John Curtis said, we need to talk about it more because an exact quote from Representative Curtis, he said, Democrats are owning this one. And what that is causing is all the ideas are coming from them. And conservatives shouldn't let that continue. Now, behind the scenes, not for Representative Curtis, but for the larger Republican Party, there's another issue here. If you look at polling, voters under the age of 30, roughly, put climate change as either their top or second in line concern. And additional polling shows that there's a lack of faith among younger voters that Republicans have solutions. So Representative Curtis isn't thinking about that, but the overall national Republican Party and state parties increasingly are thinking that. Young voters want solutions. They want proposals to deal with climate change because they're worried about the planet. In fact, there is also evidence showing that declines in birth rates in the United States may be a direct result of concerns over climate change. People choosing not to have kids because they don't want to contribute to the climate problem, but also, and more alarming, they're not having kids because they're not confident there will be a decent planet for their kids to have their own kids in. And that's depressing to think about, that we have an entire generation that has that mindset, or a lot of them at least have that mindset. Representative Curtis said, his response to this is we need to show them that conservatives and Republicans have solutions. But he said at this climate summit recently, we also need to do more to direct the conversation, because he said there are a lot of things that he, as a conservative Republican, feel Democrats are missing or leaving out from the conversation around climate change. And here's just a bit of his presentation. He did this at the Sutherland Institute. They asked him. So he made a few comments like this during a panel during the Conservative Climate Summit here in Salt Lake last week. And Sutherland Institute invited him back this week to expand on what he said. And here's what he said at the Sutherland Institute event just earlier today.
This is an astounding fact. The United States has reduced more greenhouse gas emissions over the last decade and a half than most of the countries trying to reduce emissions combined. We did that, hold your breath, with a fossil fuel. Natural gas is much cleaner than many other sources. And so instead of saying, look, fossil fuels are bad, I think it's a much better conversation to say, how do we reduce emissions? And if that's using, you mentioned the balance, okay, if that's renewables, if that's nuclear, if that's fossil fuels, how are we best able to reduce emissions and hang on to those things like national security, energy independence at low affordable price? This is an astounding fact. The United States has reduced. That was,
again, John Curtis speaking at Sutherland Institute event today. Sutherland Institute has been hosting a weekly series, which they're also putting out as a podcast, called Defending Ideas, Common Sense Conservatism. And so it's interesting for me to watch this, too, because even Sutherland has shifted on this one. 10 years ago, the Sutherland Institute, and this is how Paul Miro and I actually became friends, believe it or not. Sutherland Institute was hosting a climate series, a series of panels and speakers. And I was so excited about this because of what John Curtis is talking about today. Okay, here is, the right side of the conversation. The left side of the conversation around climate change has been around for decades, and definitely Democrats, embracing the left on climate change, have owned that discussion. And all you've heard from Republicans and conservatives is we don't believe in it, which increasingly just means we're pretending it doesn't exist, because again, the science is right there in your face. So I was so excited when the Sutherland Institute hosted this, because I'm a firm believer in the fact that to get the best policy, you need a war of ideas. You need left and right, knocking heads occasionally, but hopefully for the most part, compromising, coming up with ways to include important priorities for both sides, and then you end up with some decent policy. So I was so excited, and then they brought in all of these representatives from big oil conglomerates. And it was interesting. There was quite a bit to learn still, but I told Paul and the rest of the leadership of Sutherland, I said, big mistake, because now it just looks like an advertisement. You could have done this credibly. And I was so disappointed. And nothing like that has happened in Utah since, until Representative John Curtis launches this Conservative Climate Caucus in Congress. And that leads to this Conservative Climate Summit. Second annual, by the way, that took place. It was, I'm sorry, I said Salt Lake. It was actually in Orem at Utah Valley University. And outgoing, now retired at this point, I believe, Congressman Chris Stewart was there as well, and GOP nominee for his seat, the seat he's vacated, Celeste Malloy was there as well. But there were a lot of experts on hand, and here's what was great: they had scientists, they had researchers from UVU and other universities as well. This wasn't just like an this wasn't just oil industry reps standing up there saying you could drink this stuff in your morning cereal, which is kind of what was happening 10 years ago on the right. So this is so encouraging to see. And you heard from Representative Curtis there, to kind of translate what he said there. What he's saying is, look, this idea that we can do this without fossil fuels entirely is silly. And I actually agree. And there are some on the extreme left out there who are even opposed to nuclear because, I mean, granted, nuclear energy does present some significant risks, and you do need a lot of water to make it work with current technology. New technologies are coming online, every year. But right now, if you're just going to wave a magic wand and set up a nuclear power plant here in Utah, you would need to use a lot of the water. And as you may have heard, it's kind of a precious resource in a desert state. So, we have to be realistic about this. There are no magic wands, but Curtis is right. Fossil fuels, if we were to just switch off the fossil fuel spigot tomorrow, and I completely agree, we should have done something 10, 15, 20 years ago. We should have done more, but we didn't. So here we are now today. You can't just switch them off. That would the effects of that economically on everyone's quality of life just unimaginable. So you can't just switch them off, but you can push for the adoption of more natural gas use, which is cleaner than burning oil or coal. You can. Curtis also pointed this out. He said, for my side of things, the Republican side of things, we need to stop being. This is an exact quote. Curtis said, "We need to stop being silly about wind and solar." It's working. Other countries have built a huge portion of their power grid off of wind and solar, and yet a lot of my colleagues will still tell me solar doesn't work when the sun isn't up. And Curtis said, I just want everyone to be better informed on my side of things because we're wasting our time making these arguments because we have ideas. It was a fascinating thing to see. Again, I've linked to the video on our Facebook page if you want to check it out. Please do. This was the second annual. We'll be back again next year, roughly the same time. And there's actually a subscription for an email newsletter to stay up to date on these events. It was hosted at UVU this time. I believe next year they're planning on going a little further south, a location in the Moab area. But again, this is a one-of-a-kind thing happening, and hats off to one of Utah's federal delegates, Congressman Chris Stewart from Utah's 3rd Congressional District, for launching this Conservative Climate Caucus and the annual Conservative Climate Summit. An amazing conversation, and believe me, it might take a bit more, but it will make everything better when it comes to the policy coming out of these debates. To have both sides presenting ideas and countering proposals instead of just one with the other one getting ignored. So all good news, and check it out. Again, links on our Facebook page, and we'll be back right after this.
KVNU News Time is 5:30. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology. A registered sex offender has been found competent to stand trial on charges of allegedly trying to rape and kill a Logan woman. Daniel Smoot Henshaw has been in the Cache County Jail since being arrested outside the alleged victim's home. Henshaw appeared Monday afternoon in Logan's 1st District Court. He was previously charged with attempted murder and rape, both first-degree felonies, and tampering with evidence, a third-degree felony. On June 28th, Logan City police officers received a 911 call from a woman scared for her safety. She claimed Henshaw, a 33-year-old Logan resident, was outside her home and wanted to rape and kill her. The alleged victim told police that she had been in a relationship with Henshaw and was camping with him, but became concerned about some of his behavior. She explained how he allegedly deleted messages between them on both of their phones and said he was covering his tracks. She asked him to take her home, and he complied. But while driving, he allegedly told her he had a plan to take her into the wilderness and rape and kill her, according to a probable cause statement. Henshaw was parked outside the woman's home when officers arrived on the scene. While being questioned, he reportedly admitted to planning to take the alleged victim into the wilderness and rape and kill her. Frankie said that police obtained a warrant to search Henshaw's vehicle. Inside it, they found evidence to support the claims. One person was killed while another was critically injured after a hang glider collided with a paraglider midair in Draper. Lieutenant Mike Elkins with Draper City Police said they responded just after 5 p.m. Tuesday to a midair collision at Draper Point of the Mountain at the Salt Lake County Flight Park. Elkins said the incident involved a tandem paraglider carrying a male and female who were hit by a nearby hang glider. The female sustained critical injuries and was airlifted to Intermountain Medical Center. Elkins said the male, identified as an experienced paraglider Joshua Ellison, succumbed to his injuries and was pronounced dead at the scene. The hang glider involved was treated and released on site. And Senator Mitt Romney has returned from a bipartisan delegation of U.S. senators that visited Israel over the weekend in response to the terrorist attacks by Hamas aimed at Israeli citizens. The visit included meetings with Israeli government officials and families of American Israeli hostages held by Hamas. At a press conference held in Israel, Senator Romney harshly condemned the attacks. He said Hamas is holding their own population, the Palestinian population, as human shields, and they're using Palestinians to protect their own lives, Hamas lives. And he said, therefore, when Israel takes action to try and go after Hamas and take out its leadership, there will be individuals who are civilians and innocent that will be killed, and they will parade that as if this is some horror being perpetrated by Israel. He also encouraged the United States to continue fighting against authoritarian regimes that threaten democracy around the world, including China, Russia, and Iran. In addition to Senator Romney, the delegation included Senators Chuck Schumer, Democrat from New York, Bill Cassidy, Republican from Louisiana, Jackie Rosen, Democrat from Nevada, and Mark Kelly, Democrat from Arizona. KVNU News Time is 5:34.
My hearing started to go right around the same time my wife started naming off all the upgrades she wanted done on the house. I figured it was selective hearing. To be honest, I was actually pretty upset when it was suggested that I might need hearing aids, but ultimately I knew it was time for a change.
At Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology, we can help you regain the confidence that you're hearing life the way it was meant to be heard.
Bring back what you've been missing. Bring back Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology.
Visit CacheHearing.com for details.
President Biden is returning from a high-stakes visit to Israel where he reaffirmed U.S. aid in the war with Hamas, and he ensured humanitarian aid to Palestinians in Gaza. More from ABC's Martha Raddatz in Tel Aviv.
President Biden spent more than 8 hours on the ground in Israel. The president shared emotional moments with first responders and families. Biden invoking the Holocaust, saying it brought back painful memories.
The world watched then, it knew, and the world did nothing. We will not stand by and do nothing again.
But as Israel Defense Forces poise for a ground assault in Gaza, Biden's embrace of the Israelis came with a gentle warning. Learn from the mistakes America made after 9/11.
At the Capitol today, police made about 300 arrests after a demonstration demanding a ceasefire in the war. With continuing coverage, Israel-Hamas war. Daria Albinger, ABC News.
KVNU weather for tonight, partly cloudy skies, overnight low in the low 40s, around 43. Another nice day tomorrow, mostly sunny, around 72, sunny around 74 on Friday. We've stayed in the upper 60s. It's been to 69, so almost close to 70 degrees. Right now we have 68 at KVNU. If you've been in an accident that wasn't your fault and worried about how to pay the bills and take care of your family, you deserve an advocate. The Advocates, injury attorneys, now with offices in Logan. Chat anytime. It won't cost a dime. Call 801-355-5550 or chat online at utawadvocates.com. You can always get more news at cachevalleydaily.com.
If you or a loved one has been hurt in an accident, don't wait. Call the Advocates today for a free legal consultation. You didn't deserve to be in an accident, but you do deserve an advocate. Chat online at utawadvocates.com or call 801-355-5550.
This is the Sean Hannity Show.
One high school teacher in California threatened to punish students who protested a pride video in a math class. Why are we showing pride videos in math class? I mean, are we using some type of algebraic equation to determine, how many, people are pride in the picture? I mean, is that what it is? How about we teach our kids the basics, the fundamentals?
Weekday afternoons from 1 to 4 on News Talk KVNU.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Very excited about our next guest because this is an honor for me to both to hear a voice that I'll be honest I've missed. Not that current leadership in the state has made me miss this voice, but just someone that through the years has always been gracious to give us his time and a great interview, and probably I would say someone that knows the state of Utah better than anyone through various roles in public service dating back decades. Joining us right now to talk about a new institute of public policy for students, elected officials, thought leaders, and more at the Utah Valley University campus, former Governor Gary Herbert. And Governor Herbert, it's a pleasure to have you join us here on the show. What have you been up to?
Well, first, let me say, Jason, it's an honor to be on the show with you again. And I've missed our little chats from the past, but it's good to get back together.
Sure.
I've been busy. My wife says I thought we were going to retire. And we have cut down from 70 hours a week and have our days in 15 and 30-minute increments. So now I'm only doing about 35 hours a week. So I told my wife, Jeanette, that's like being half-time. So we're still pretty busy. And our institute's growing down at Utah Valley University, and we hope to make a difference with the students there, discovering how to make public policy happens. What is good public policy? What should they be doing as the rising generation impact change for the better? And so I enjoy, like one of the things we do is I have hoagies with Herbert. So we feed them for lunch. They come for the food and stay for the discussion on politics. So
nice.
It's been an exciting thing, and we had to raise a bunch of money. We're still doing some of that, but I'm very pleased with the success we have had. We've had some really great guests. I know a lot of people, and we've had Mike Pence, former vice president, a couple of times.
Oh, wow.
We've had Tim Shriver, a good Democrat. Kennedy, some people wouldn't know him, but they know his sister was married to Arnold Schwarzenegger, Marie Shriver. And he's a good man and trying to do some things in his own way to make things more civil in the public discourse, which I applaud. Arthur Brooks. We've had Art Lafler, the former economic advisor for Ronald Reagan, has been here. So we've got a few. And October the 5th, I think we've got Paul Ryan coming in town.
Oh, wow.
Former Speaker of the House and Congress, and he'll be coming to speak. And in the spring, we've got Princess Rima Al Saud, who's the ambassador from Saudi Arabia, has become a good friend of mine and just a wonderful lady. And what they're doing in Saudi Arabia to open up opportunities for women, more tourism and trade in Saudi Arabia. And so it'll be interesting to hear what she has to say about the evolution that's taking place in the Middle East, particularly Saudi Arabia. So we got a few heavy hitters coming up and just regular discussions, research on different topics, working with the students. So that's just one aspect of my life which keeps me pretty busy.
This is it's all very exciting to talk about because I know these institutes, the way they influence public policy, the way they can influence our legislature, both through direct publication of research or policy papers, but also through, student intern projects. I know there are several staffers on the Hill right now that started out as an intern of some way through something like the Herbert Institute.
Oh, yeah.
It's a great way to sort of build the bench for the leaders in the future, and of course you're doing this with a goal in mind that's very much been on my mind recently. I read a survey about Generation Z that scared me, and the survey basically said they have very little hope, and they have zero almost trust in our institutions, and that's one of the things directly you're trying to address through your personal work and through this institute, right?
Absolutely. It's hard to understand if you're not involved in the process. It's easy to lump everybody into they're all crooks, or they don't care, they don't know about me. But once you're up there and working the process, our interns come back and say, wow, I didn't realize how heavy of a workload that these legislators have to take on, the challenge it is to try to please everybody, which you can't do. The difference between, more government, less government, and that constant debate. They come back learning that the goals and objectives of what we're trying to accomplish on Republican or Democrat or any other party for that matter generally are the very same thing. We want to have a successful economy. We want to have good education. We want to have a good environment. We want to have, a good place to live and raise your family. But how we do that, the journey, the pathway forward, the policy that we espouse to get to that end goal, that's where we sometimes differ. And so learning how to get together and work together to find common ground to advance the policy forward is getting to be a lost art. We don't do very well in Washington, D.C. We do a pretty good job here in Utah, but boy, they sure could use some help in Washington.
It's always striking to me that even those sometimes, speaking specifically about social media right now, I'll see people who I know maybe are politically similar to me, their opinions and their beliefs, and I'll see them talking to, say, a state lawmaker that I also happen to know either through interviewing them here on the show or, having the opportunity to even work with them on legislation over the years. And it'll shock me sometimes at the cruelty almost that I will see. And I always tease Senator Todd Weiler, I always have to go out and defend you because you're a nice guy. You're a very thoughtful guy. And he laughs it off. He can handle it. But that's always kind of been a personal lesson of mine, that these people that I met, actually met in person, it's hard to hate them after that, right?
Well, once you associate with people, get to know them, it is harder to hate them because you get to understand them. You know that they're not evil. And politics, unfortunately, and I don't know why exactly it's happened. I've got some theories on it. But why do we have a more and more an us versus them mentality? Us are always the good guys, and them is always the enemy. And so we're always right on the us side. Them is always wrong on the other side. And if they're evil and wrong, we need to destroy them. And so consequently, we get the pounding on people, probably unmercifully, inappropriately. And that's something we've got to see if we can't counter and get back to having respectful civil discussions where we, in fact, look for the good in people. I think most, in my own experience, and I've been 30 years, 6 months, and 5 days as an elected official, county commissioner and lieutenant governor and governor for nearly 12, I really have found very few people, all that I've met, not only here in Utah but across the country, of people that weren't just trying to do the best they could do, and give it their best shot and try to make the right policy decisions based on their own view of what is best for their constituency. I have not found a lot of corruption or people that are trying to take advantage of their position to feather their own nest. So I think most people are really good people out there trying to serve as best they can, and we ought to treat them better because of that.
As this can be applied as well for a lot of our listeners, they probably qualify themselves as legislative junkies or political junkies of the Utah process. And one thing that always stood out to me about your administration as governor, that there were times when there was a tense relationship between the legislature. This is what I think everyone misses. It's rarely arguments between Republicans and Democrats on the Hill. It's the House and the Senate arguing, or the House, Senate, and the governor's office having a disagreement. But throughout all of that, you maintained a relationship with the legislature that was never. You never threw bombs. You never really, at times, the bully pulpit was there as a tool, but you used it responsibly. And you left office as not only a very publicly popular governor, but very popular on the Hill. But that doesn't mean that there weren't times when everybody was on a whole different page, right?
Well, it happens. There's the old adage that we have 104 legislators, 29 in the Senate and 75 in the House, and all of them think they should be governor.
That's right.
And so, they're saying, well, he's not doing what I think we should do. I would do this differently if I was the governor. And I understand that. It's Governor Mike Leavitt used to call it a healthy tension between the executive branch and the legislative branch. I don't know how healthy tension is, but there is certainly that separation of the powers. The genius of our Constitution is the separate powers and the checks and balances it provides on each other. That would, of course, include the judiciary. And yet we've done things that probably have not helped us. We've politicized the bench. Why do we call any bench, any panel of judges, a conservative bench or a liberal bench? It should be just the bench. And certainly in the federal courts, that's just been abused so badly. And, of course, the top of the list is the Supreme Court. And that's not right. We've lost our way there. In our state courts, I've appointed about 105 judges, probably more than anybody in state history.
Wow.
But we didn't care whether they were Republicans or Democrats or religious, whatever their denomination may be they subscribe to. We didn't care. We didn't ever ask that question. We did ask very intently, though, how are you going to make a decision? On what criteria do you base your judgment? And the simple answer is they need to base their judgments based on the law and the actions that apply to the law, the facts of the case. What are the facts of the matter? And apply that to the law and then render a decision. And it doesn't matter what the law leads you to, but that's the decision you render. It shouldn't be, well, I wish it was this, or I hope it was something else, or the legislature needs to change the law. Render the decision, and then if they don't like it, then the legislature can change the law to fix whatever problem there may be. But we tolerate no activism on the bench from the left or the right, and that's the way it ought to be. But that's just part of the tension. And again, the executive and legislative branches kind of tussle back and forth on who's going to do what. And particularly, we've had a unique time during my spin. There was the COVID-19.
Sure.
All of a sudden, we have an emergency, and under the Constitution of the state of Utah, there are emergency powers given to the governor that need to be utilized because you can't wait. You can't wait to call them into session and have a discussion and debate. You need to act accordingly immediately. And so for, earthquake damage, fire, flood, pestilence, a pandemic, you're authorized to make some executive orders that kind of supersede the legislature, and they don't like that. But that's just kind of the way it's set up, and that's part of the law. So that adds to some of the tension and stuff that happens in our state and other states. So it's a constant work back and forth. The best thing we did in Utah is we communicate. We talk to each other. I would meet with Republicans and Democrats every week, their leadership. We would find out what's going on. What are the issues at hand? How are we doing with the budget? What are the things we need to do for infrastructure improvement, which were transportation and water? How are we doing with education? What are we doing to keep our teachers, get more teachers? What are we teaching to? Are we controlling our own standards? And how the curriculum is being taught in all of our different school districts by elected people, by the way. So there's always something to talk about. There's always change afoot. And, for me, what we try to do is keep a steady hand on the tiller so that we kept on that straight, narrow path of excellence. And consequently, the results are Utah is really the gold standard of state government in the nation.
Sure.
And the most healthy, diverse economy, people vote defeat. We're growing the last 10 years, the fastest growing state in America. And it's because we do the basics right. And we don't spend more than we take in. We don't have irrational debt. We save for a rainy day. We do all the things that everybody wants to do in their own household and their own business. And that's how we should run state government, too. And we do. And consequently, we're one of only about 10 states that have a AAA bond rating from all the rating agencies on Wall Street. That's somewhat remarkable about us, but it tells us a little bit about the people that are straying off the straight and narrow path in 40 other states.
That is, and you mentioned the pandemic there. That was, it ties right in with discussions about relationships and conversations and civility and all of that, dignity.
Yeah.
Because I watched, as that played out, Utah, despite what some of the more dramatic things you might read on social media would imply, we never fully shut the state down, ever. We never mandated, ever, anything. And yet we're able to negotiate and responsibly respond to a public health crisis that was immense. But as you watch that play out, that had to be tied to having, the good relationships that you'd built with Senate leader, with the Speaker of the House, with, the Utah Department of Health, all of that. You were able to navigate these things, and it was never a big argument.
No, again, part of it was because we had open communication. We did a few stumbles here and there, I've had people ask me this question. If you had it to do over again, would you do it the same way? And I say, knowing what I know now, no, I would do some things differently. But knowing what I knew then, I would do it exactly the same way, because you go with the best information you have.
Sure.
I had very intelligent people, knowledgeable scientists, doctors, medical advisors around me for Utah. I trusted the Utah people. We relied upon them heavily to make a plan. We didn't just fly by the seat of our pants. We actually put in writing a plan to help Utah get out of the pandemic and move ahead. And consequently, because of all that we did, well, not perfectly, but I know even Glenn Beck, the great libertarian on the radio, a very conservative guy, said the state that handled the pandemic the best was Utah.
Our guest again has been former Governor Gary Herbert. Stick with us. More to come with our time with the former governor here, talking about the Gary R. Herbert Institute for Public Policy at Utah Valley University, launched recently, already making a big influence with publication of policy papers, a student intern program that's already up and running, public forums that you can view online and in person there on campus at UVU, a scholarship program and more, all of it with the goal of getting young people involved in the process, of course, but also with fostering a broader discussion about civility, respect, dignity, community, and trust in our civic institutions. All of this wrapped up in an institute that I would say, Governor, is a long time coming. So excited to talk about this with you today. And for our listeners, stay tuned. More time with former Governor Gary Herbert and discussion about the Herbert Institute, the Dignity Index Project, Governor Caucus's Disagree Better, and more to come here on KVN News for the People.
Are you a business owner or HR director that's frustrated with your current employee benefits? If you are confused about coverages and can't get a hold of your agent, it's time for a change. This is Matt Robbins with Quality First Insurance and Alera Benefits. As an independent agency, we will give you options. Let us give your benefits package a fresh look. Call Quality First Insurance and Alera Benefits today, 435-752-0101.
Is it time to upgrade or transform your dining area? Stop in and browse U&I Furniture's big selection of dining sets. U&I just picked up a spectacular assortment from different brand name manufacturers. They have small tables for two, up to a big table for all family gatherings. U&I has lots of options, some with benches and swivel stools. And make sure you check out the chairs U&I has. Accent chairs, recliners, upholstered chairs, and more. There really is always a better buy at U&I. U&I Furniture in downtown Logan.
What are you going to be for Halloween? Yes, everyone loves to dress up for Halloween. Even Even some of your favorite Johnny O Spud Nuts are in disguise. Pick out your favorite spooky Spud Nuts and creepy creature creations made fresh every day. Johnny O's. Take a dozen spooky Spud Nuts to your Halloween party or ghostly gathering. Johnny O's Spud Nuts, our favorite Transylvania treat. Johnny O's Spud Nuts.
The Cache Valley Media Group's Holiday Gift Show is now accepting applications for the 2023 show November 3rd and 4th at the Riverwoods Conference Center. Show your creative, unique, festive, and one-of-a-kind gift ideas to thousands of holiday shoppers. This wonderful gift show is truly a step above. Search Logan Holiday Gift Show for details or call 752-1390 for more information.
That's 752-1390.
The Logan Holiday Gift Show is presented by Coppins Hallmark. Space is limited. Reserve your booth today.
Thank you for tuning in to today's show, but please stay tuned. A bonus hour for the people, if you will. Transitioning here in just a few minutes to our live broadcast of the Logan City Municipal Council candidate debate. I'll be moderating the event. I'm actually there at City Hall now, setting up the magic of radio. And we'll go live in just a few minutes here to our questions submitted by our audience here on For the People, and also audience members in person at City Hall who are going to be submitting them to me throughout the event. We'll broadcast this live, the full debate, from 6 to 7 p.m. here tonight, followed immediately by the For the People, or excuse me, the KVNU Coaches Show with Al Lewis starting at 7. So a full night of entertainment here for you on KVNU. Don't go anywhere. Tomorrow on the program, 47G. What is it? This is a lobbying firm that popped up kind of out of nowhere until people heard that Congressman Chris Stewart, former Congressman Chris Stewart, just days after he officially retired from the United States Congress early, citing his wife's health, announced he had joined this lobby firm, 47G, here in Utah. Their title, full title for 47G, is Utah's Aerospace, Defense, and Cyber Association. This is a lobby firm hoping to promote entrepreneurship here in Utah around Utah's already pretty robust aerospace and defense industries. What that means and more, representatives of the organization join us tomorrow on the show, as well as Charlie Schill joining us for the For the People Theater Hour. That's tomorrow at 4. Again, stay tuned. Another hour to go here for your entertainment. The Logan City Municipal Candidate Debate, live from Logan City Hall, starts right after this here on KVNU Logan.
Covering Aggie football like no one else does. News Talk KVNU Logan, 102 FM and 610 AM. The home for USU Aggie fans.